Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. So, the other day, Operatordrewski on his channel made a video. I made Ghost Recon actually good. Ghost Recon discussion. I'll link the video down below. It's about a 40-minute video, and I had a decision to make for this video. Whether or not I wanted to actually go through that entire video in this video, playing it, pausing it, and then discussing my ideas, or basically taking the cliff notes of what he said he'd like to see Ghost Recon be in the future, and then discussing that and discuss my ideas on that. I went with the latter, being that he has a 40-minute video as it is. I didn't want to have an hour and a half video talking about this, where I could just basically break down his main talking points and discuss that. Link his video and you could go see that on your own if you'd like. So let's really get into what he was discussing as far as what he'd like to see in a Ghost Recon game of his choice. And a lot of it, you could tell a lot of his inspiration came from Escape from Tarkov and Arma 3. He did mention Destiny in his video. And a lot of his ideas were good. I do feel like a lot of his ideas miss the mark when it comes to what Ghost Recon Breakpoint actually is, and I'm going to discuss that here. So first off, one of the first things he says and discusses is something about keybinds. It's very early in the video, but I wanted to discuss this because it has to do with console gamers and keybinds. He stated that we can't fill too many keybinds, otherwise controller players will fall behind when it comes to what developers can do. And this is to Ubisoft and all the developers out there. It's time to make more modifiers on your controller. I do have a example of a Ghost Recon controller, schematic right here. And I feel like there are so many ways to make the D-pad, make the face buttons be different things every time you touch one of the D-pads. Maybe you could press the D-pad up 3 times. Maybe you could press D-pad left 3 times, D-pad right 3 times, D-pad down 3 times. And every time you press it, the face buttons change, right? This is something developers need to do so they can make more keybinds for PC players and console players alike. Ghost of Tsushima did this really well when it came to holding down a button to choose your stance, holding down a button to choose your weapon, holding down a button to choose the items of your weapon, your bow's items, your blow darts items, the 2 different bow's items. Ghost of Tsushima had a really good model with that, with using buttons as modifiers to use the other buttons to select what you wanted. And I feel like Ghost Recon and the Ubisoft team need to really change up how they program their buttons to have more modifiers so we can have more options for our game. Now, that's something very simple. Moving forward, Drewski mentioned gear, and this is something I've tried to hit home time and time again on this channel. Now, him with almost 1 million subscribers, he can really paint this picture for developers to listen to, and I hope they understand where they can go with this system. Yes, gear should matter, and classes should be absolutely irrelevant in our games. At least our tactical shooter games, Ghost Recon. What I mean by this, and I've said this in earlier videos, Ubisoft needs to get away from the model of customization just being cosmetic. When you put on all this tat gear, all this heavy tat gear, your player should be able to take more bullets. However, your player should be less stealthy, meaning they should be more loud if they're creeping around. Enemies should turn around if they're creeping on them more. Almost like the Splinter Cell light mechanic. The more you're in the light, the more enemies saw you. The less you're in the light, the less enemies saw you. It should be the same thing with gear. You put on a lot of gear, you're loud. You can't creep around as much, but you could take maybe more bullets. If you get maybe shot in the head, you have a helmet on, there's a chance for bullets to ricochet off, things of that nature. You have less gear on, you're more stealthy, you're more agile, you're quicker. That's also another thing. Speed should matter. he touches on this, and I agree 100%. I feel like this is something that the Ubisoft team should build into their Anvil Next 2.0 engine so they can start utilizing this component moving forward in their Ghost Recon games. We have to get to the point where gear and camouflage matters. This is something else he spoke about. He brought up camo and the fact that your camouflage should matter according to the terrain you're in. Now, I understand games are about fun. And if Ubisoft wants to go ahead and have on-off switches for everything they create, like they've done with Breakpoint, a lot of it, immersive mode, tier mode, what type of things you want to have for enemy AI or bivouacs and this, that, and the other, that's fine. But bottom line is there needs to be a reason to have certain camouflage on in certain terrains. There needs to be a reason to wear a ghillie suit. And there has to be pros and cons to each piece of gear that you put on for your character. This is something he hit home with, something that he discussed early in his video. I completely agree with it. This is something I've discussed. This is something the community has discussed. You hop on the Ghost Recon forums, these types of things have been mentioned before. And it's something that I feel Ghost Recon moving forward needs to implement. Moving forward from there, he started speaking on ballistics, how ballistics needed to be tweaked, the bullet drop needs to be fixed. This is a no-brainer. This is also something everybody has discussed in the community. The bullet drop in the game is bad. We're getting to the point now where we have next-gen consoles coming out. There's no reason why after 100 or 200 meters, a bullet should completely fall off the world. And this is something that should be fixed moving forward. However, what he didn't discuss, which I believe he just overlooked, being that he's probably playing all of these games that have these mechanics already, we need to get to the point where suppressors and bullet types in the game matter when it comes to sound and how much noise you make. I've made a video discussing how suppressors should work in our modern day tactical shooter with Ghost Recon and the franchise. And I feel different types of suppressors need to be implemented in this game in order to have a type of noise meter, a type of noise meter that we make as players. So if you have a sniper rifle and you shoot your gun with a suppressor, you're going to be heard if you're too close to the enemy base. If you're no farther than 150, 200 meters, you're going to be heard. If you're in the middle of a base and you decide to use a suppressor on a weapon that is too loud as it is, people within the base are going to hear you. Now, in this video, I discussed different types of suppressors and bullets which would equal type of sound and loudness. I'm not going to get into that right here. I will link that video up above. But basically what it comes down to is if you were to have, let's say, 3 types of suppressors, and we'll just call them small, medium, large. And the small types are for your types of guns that you want close quarter combat. Your medium, you would want AR type of combat. And your large, you would want sniper type of combat. What the pros and cons of this would be, because understand we do have to have these video game mechanics that give and take when you're utilizing mechanic in game. What you would have is with your submachine guns or guns like this that are quiet with these types of suppressors, they would be weaker when hitting an enemy, and they would have bullet drop that maybe 200 meters or whatnot. They would have more bullet drop, worse aim the farther you go out distance wise. So you wouldn't put on a quiet meter for trying to engage at 300 plus meters because the accuracy would be off. But you'd be quiet in the middle of a base. This would be the give and take of a suppressor system in game. Now you can completely throw that away and just have realistic suppressors to the point where if you're shooting your suppressed weapon in the middle of a base, everybody hears you. That's fine too. But I was thinking more as far as video game-ish, having different types of suppressors, and the pros and the cons of them would be some suppressors would be very quiet, like how they are in game now, but at far distances their range would be off and they'd have a worse bullet drop and things like that. as opposed to suppressors that are louder, where you would be wanting to engage enemies at a farther distance, but the accuracy is better, there's less bullet drops, things like that. I feel like the ballistics do need to be changed, some things do need to be tweaked. If there was to be a mechanic built into the game, I would hope they would fix the suppression system as well as the ballistics, because walking around a base and shooting someone with your M4 suppressed and it being completely quiet, shooting somebody in front of you and 20 meters to your 9 o'clock, nobody hears you, is a bit ridiculous, and I feel that needs to be remedied moving forward in this franchise. It's something Drewski missed, but I know he would agree with me on that. Moving forward, let's see. He did discuss something that I do disagree with now. And this is about what Ghost Recon should be. And he talked about game modes, and he spoke a lot about co-op game modes. Now, I know Breakpoint was supposedly made. It was really made for this co-op experience. And I still think that not only Ubisoft, but even Drewski in this matter doesn't fully understand the Ghost Recon community and what they want at this juncture in this franchise. Ghost Recon is all about being a squad-based, third-person tactical shooter. This is what the community wants from this game. And something that Drewski didn't discuss, as he discussed his game modes and how he discussed him wanting one of his game modes, I think, on a harder difficulty. I think he wanted it to be first person or something like that. I don't disagree that all games should act like Grand Theft Auto, where you could play third and first. If developers want to go through that, more power to them. I do disagree with wanting to make a specific game different. I know the old Ghost Recons were first person, but it's a third person franchise now. Just like Call of Duty's a first person franchise. They flirted with third person PvP back in, I think, Modern Warfare, which I enjoyed a lot. But bottom line, people want to be able to control their AI teammates, and they want to do it in a third person manner. This is something he didn't touch on because a lot of his game modes were based on co-op PvP. He discussed one being an operations game mode where it was a large-scale 90-minute operation that had up to 16 players, a planning phase, arranging your weapons, having draw lines to where Team 1 would go this way, Team 2 would go this way, things like that, right? And there was a 30-minute operation, which was something like that, except shorter, maybe less people. And what else did he have? Then he had a 4-player co-op, a 4-player PvP mission where you had night vision and up to 16 enemies didn't have night vision, and that's the way it worked. And I'm going to get into more of that, but the thing I feel like he misunderstood about Ghost Recon is the fact that people want AI teammates. I think, and I could be wrong, I'd like to see Ubisoft statistics on this, on what people are doing in-game. I would be willing to bet that I'm right in this case. More people are playing this game solo than they are playing it co-op. And the fact that Drewski didn't mention AI teammates leads me to believe that he doesn't really have his pulse on this community and what this community really wants moving forward. The community not only wants AI teammates, the community wants their AI teammates to be completely not only customizable, but completely controllable. Upwards of 6-8 AI teammates, whatever. But we want to be able to control teammates individually. We want to be able to give orders like hold and move while opening and holding fire. We want to be able to tell one teammate to go this way, one teammate to go that way, that teammate to throw a breach, that teammate to throw a flashbang, that teammate to breach in. We want to be able to have that teammate throw a grenade, send 2 teammates that way, have them come in as we move forward. We want to be able to be true commanders on the battlefield. And there's a difference between commanding your AI teammates where you feel like you have total control and playing with other people. No doubt playing co-op is extremely fun, and I'm sure it's way more fun in a lot of these other games like Arma 3. But the Ghost Recon community prefers to play solo with AI squad teammates. Now, when Ubisoft brought over the AI's teammates from Wildlands, a lot of people were disappointed because it seemed like a plug and play mechanic. Nothing has really changed. If we are to ask Ubisoft Paris to sit here in Anvil Next 2.0 with everything they already have built in that engine between Assassin's Creed and Ghost Recon and truly change things for the better, it has to live within the realm of reality. And I feel like Drewski's entire video is within the realm of the imaginative. I don't believe it's realistic for this type of game to be created within Ghost Recon because this is a completely different game. You would literally have to build what Drewski wants from the ground up as developers. There's no way they're going to take everything that they've built in Wildlands and Breakpoint and throw it out the window and rebuild everything else with the game modes and things of that nature. The game is a third-person tactical shooter set in this type of scenario where you go into the game, there's the game map, you have AI teammates, 3 other players can join you. Until they show us otherwise, there's no way we're going to have up to upwards of 16 players. That's just, a wish. I had a video a while back speaking on what I'd like to see for a Ghost Recon Battle Royale, 100 players and wolves versus ghosts and things of that nature. I'll link it up here if you want to check it out. And I know that's never going to be created. That was just for fun. But this is almost as if he's giving bullet points and checking off a list on things he feels the developers can do. And I kind of disagree because it is so different than what Ghost Recon is. I don't feel like we're really discussing what they can improve for the next game. The most important thing, in my opinion, are the AI teammates. I think if you nail the AI teammates with allowing the player to control each teammate individually, to give them the option to hold a position while opening fire, to give them the option to move to a position 100 meters away while opening or holding fire, to give one of your teammates a sniper rifle and have them up on a mountain, and give your other two teammates orders to move forward on the flanks while you move up the middle, and your 4th teammate sit behind in the overwatch position. This is what the community wants, in my opinion. This is what the development team should work on, in my opinion, is going into these controls, going into the code of how these AI teammates are controlled and tweaking that. And out of a 40-minute video, he mentioned nothing about AI teammates. Every one of his game modes was just about co-op PvP. And in my opinion, I don't think the majority of people who play this game care for the co-op PvP. Now, moving forward, he discussed HUD issues, and I think Ubisoft Paris really nailed the HUD issues with Ghost Recon Breakpoint. You could basically tweak all the HUD issues. And at one point, he said you should not have any enemy icons above your head, and although I do agree with that, I don't agree with removing it completely from the game. I think if you want enemy icons above the head so you can mark them and know where they are moving at all times, more props to you. It's video games. Options are the best things in video games. And having the option to do one or the other is better than having the option to just do one. And regardless if I feel like enemies should not have anything above their head because it's a tactical shooter and you should have to be paying attention, that doesn't mean that the guy, the other guy playing the game, the other girl playing the game isn't kind of, cooking dinner, putting the baby to sleep, doing this, doing that, pressing pause, pressing on pause. People of all different lifestyles play video games. Everything in the HUD should be able to turn off. Everything in the HUD should be able to be turned on. That's my opinion on that. He did make some great points on that, but I just feel like they've done such a good job with the HUD. There's no need to tell them to remove anything. Just have the option to either turn it on or off. So he brought up a great idea with weapon checks, and this is a lot for the first-person shooters that he plays, where if let's say you have nothing on your HUD, and I forget one of my followers who has his own channel, he made a video on this where you could with the animations that they have in Breakpoint, where he takes his magazine out to look at his bullets, it's just for show. But it would be nice if when you did that, something on the HUD splashed to show you how many bullets you had. Even better yet, what Drewski was saying, that you can control whether or not you can do this through modifiers on the controls or keybinds or whatnot. And you can control when you need to look at your bullets for those of us that play with no HUD. How many magazines you have on your vest, things of that nature. I'd take it a step further. I'd have my actors voice command these things or record them. And when you do these animations in game, let's say you want to know how many bullets you have in your magazine, so you press a certain selection of buttons and your character does the animation and he looks. Instead of it splashing on the HUD for us no HUD players, I love having nothing on my HUD for those really immersive times that I play. I would rather to have the character just speak to himself. Maybe half a magazine left, and you hear, and that's what you would hear. I could, either or, whatever. But I thought that would be a good addition as well to being able to do these things where you're looking down at your magazines on your chest, or you're looking in the magazine in your gun to see how many bullets you have left in your rifle, and it splashes on the HUD for the player, or the character can actually say what he has to notify the player how many bullets or how many magazines you have left. I thought that was a good idea. So whether it's on the HUD or the character says it, that would be cool. Looking at maps, he brought up looking at maps. Man, nobody wants to go into a menu to look at a map. So if you got to make things interactive, Ubisoft, and he's right with this. Interaction is what matters in our games. So if we're going to look at our map, have the character stop and pull out a map real quick, and then it kind of zooms into the map where you're still in game. You're still kind of in game. Hell, you should be in game and you should be able to still look around with your character. You should still be able to move the camera around and then look down. Maybe it even goes into, when you open the map, it kind of goes into a first person, and you should be able to look at the map to see where you are and still look around to see enemies that's still happening in real time. That's the type of shit you need to develop moving forward to push this franchise and this genre forward. So that was a good idea, looking at maps, things like that. Then he really got into his game modes. One game mode, operations, like I said, large scale, 90-minute missions. This was something that I feel was totally out of the realm of what Ubisoft does. And I don't see this happening. 90-minute missions that acted kind of as raids, 16-player large-scale PvE, where they have a planning phase, you arrange your weapons, you draw movement lines, you split into squads of 5. Communications between squads. He wanted platoon commanders to be able to communicate with each other, and then the platoon commanders can communicate to the squad, and things of that nature. All of that is out the window because Ubisoft could barely give us a 4-player co-op, let alone 16 and things like that. I'm not saying moving forward within the next gen consoles, we should have upwards of 8 or 16 players, PvE, PvP, whatever. Sorry about that. All I'm saying is that I don't think these players who play this game care much to be playing 16-man PvE, in my opinion. I still think the most important thing in this game are AI teammates and people playing solo with AI teammates as squad commanders. It's more of a full spectrum warrior that we were talking about, 26 and myself were talking about in chat yesterday. It's more of a feeling of commanding, like full spectrum warrior, than it is of playing with others and going through things. And every one of his game modes was basically just co-op. And for a company that only has 4v, I think it's 4v4, right? For Ghost Recon, For Honor, I think it's 5v5 in Rainbow Six, to have a 16-man PvE co-op, or trying to balance that with PvE single player. I just don't know if as developers they see the vision there in doing these types of game modes that he wanted. I would much rather prefer, knowing how Ubisoft develops these games, I would much rather tell them something like, look, take your Wildlands map, take your Aroa map, split it into 3 or 4 campaign maps that allow the player to play, or they could either bounce around in one single continuous story that brings them to all of these different campaigns, or they could all be different campaigns within themselves. 'But I would much rather see various types of terrain on 3 or 4 different types of maps that are the size of an Aroa or a Wildlands, then to see something where you're discussing 90-minute missions where, you know, how does one even begin to gauge that within the realm of developing for Ghost Recon with what we see with Wildlands and Breakpoint and the direction that Ubisoft is taking this? I feel like Drewski wants more sandbox missions where you just fly into a mission. It's more of a sandbox. There are side missions and a main mission. You get in, you get out. It takes about an hour or so to do it. You complete it, and then you do a next mission. I don't know if Ubisoft will go down that path of game design. I do know it's better than what they have now, especially the irony of one of my last videos with the blossoming tree, with one of the lead game designers designing for finding treasure chests in the middle of the jungle, which is absolutely ridiculous. But I feel like if we kind of went to a place where one campaign was in Siberia or mainland China, and one campaign was in Africa, and one campaign was in the Middle East or South America, and you get these various terrains within each game map and different campaigns that could maybe all be combined into one campaign, i.e., if you've seen movies like Act of Valor, where they save the CIA, disclaimer, spoiler ahead, press mute for a second if you've never seen it. You know, they save the CIA agent, that leads them to find the guy in the boat, that leads them down into Mexico, and that leads, you know, like they bounce around different terrain. Like that's the type of stuff I think that's really cool, rather than this Breakpoint, more Wildlands, rather than this Breakpoint type of game design where you went through this boring story, this boring narrative that nobody really, it doesn't resonate with anybody, because we're looking to play a tactical shooter. We're not really looking to play a Tomb Raider, Uncharted type of game. So I feel like Drewski has the right idea with these types of mission designs. He spoke about side missions and different types of difficulties where if you recon the actual area of the mission, you might find radio towers that you could disable, and then enemies won't be able to call for reinforcements and things of that nature. And that type of stuff is what we really would like to see in our Ghost Recon games. I just don't see Ubisoft making single individual missions for upwards of 16-player PvE, you know, co-op, where you're basically turning the game on its head and creating an entirely new game. I'd rather sit here and really discuss what is Ubisoft creating, how can we give them feedback to really tweak what they are creating to make it better, because I don't see any game developer completely throwing away the things that they've been making within their game engine and rebuilding a game from the ground up. I don't see it. So that's one thing I did disagree with Drewski there with a lot of his game modes. I don't really think the community wants those types of game modes, and I don't really think those game modes are realistic to be created by Ubisoft Paris. Moving forward, it's now getting into the difficulty, which what I just mentioned. He had it to where in the earlier, easier difficulties, enemies die easy. They don't radio in for help. Harder difficulties, enemies might save their buddy. They might throw smoke, drag their buddy, put a tourniquet on their buddy, and now the enemy AI is alive again. It's to the point where if you don't set up your ambushes correctly and enemy AIs aren't actually killed and they're on the floor bleeding out, that they can be saved. This is something I actually discussed a while back, where Metal Gear Solid 5, if you shot an enemy in the leg or whatnot, they'd be on the ground and they'd pull out their pistols and shoot at you. Ghost Recon has none of this type of functionality. The only time an enemy won't die is when he can be interrogated. You'll shoot him and then he'll be on the floor. Oh, and then you can pick him up and interrogate him. So perhaps the code is there to allow an enemy to fall and still take out their pistol and shoot you or whatnot. I think this idea is a good idea for difficulty levels. I have spoken on this, and Drewski's 100% right, and I think the community would be in agreement. Difficulty for enemy damage and player damage is novice It's boring, and we need to get to the point where difficulty, we do have things where their actual tactics change. Now, let me look. I took a screenshot, and right here, this is the screenshot of what he had recommended. So on easy, the enemies just shoot you, you kill them, they don't really do anything. On medium, they radio for backup. They have basic combat tactics. Now, this I might disagree with. I think they should have basic, well, for combat tactics, he really was discussing throwing smoke, leapfrogging, suppression, which are all things I've discussed. I agree with him 100%. I really think enemies should do this regardless, but you get the idea of what he's saying, and I think he's right. Faster command structure, light reinforcements on hard. They flank more ambushes. Now they call in mortar support. There are more snipers. So also more enemies. I think things like this are really good to give developers an idea on how to program for difficulty. When the player plays on hard, add enemies, give enemies the opportunity to have better accuracy when they are shooting at you, when they're throwing grenades at you, when they're throwing flashbangs at you. Maybe enemies start suppressing you more on harder difficulties. This is another thing that Ubisoft Paris needs to hear, and it needs to be drilled in. For the length of his video, I feel like a lot of things could have been drilled in more than wanting to create a new game from the ground up. Suppression mechanics. Enemies and enemy AI need to communicate more with each other, however the code works. There needs to be enemies that dedicate suppression for other enemies to leapfrog and flank. And there needs to be a counterbalance of not a counterbalance. There needs to be a switch to where the one man suppressing, now these guys flank, this guy starts suppressing, this guy moves forward, throws a flat. Like, there needs to be better tactics for the enemies. And if this can be programmed into difficulty levels, this is what Drewski really wants for difficulty levels. This is what everybody wants for difficulty levels. Nobody wants to play on easy and just have, oh, okay, I'm immune to all these bullets now, and the enemies die quick. No one wants to play on hard, and it's, oh, now I die quick, and the enemy dies, just as quick. And I think people would rather have tactics and things like this: fast flanking, hidden ambushes, more mortars, more snipers. Set up more enemies in places. If I go into Breakpoint and I put it on hard or extreme, there should be more wolves out in the world, huddled around, mines on the ground, snipers in the forest. Instead, the way they have it programmed is they program these doodads, which is a doodad of guys on motorcycles, a doodad of guys with the alarms with hostages, a doodad of groups of enemies just moving in the forest, a doodad of wolves with a drone, one of the drone robots. And these doodads, I feel like, are just randomly spawn around where the player is. There's no rhyme or reason to them. They could actually make their doodads a lot more intriguing if the doodads were programmed to actually be hidden and look like they're hiding. And maybe the doodads come with proximity mines on the ground. I think it would be great for the player to be running through the woods and boom, you get hit in an ambush. I think that would be really awesome, and I think that's something that people like myself and Ghost Recon fans and Drewski want to see moving forward. As far as side missions, like I said, side missions should be more involved with the main mission. This is what he tried to hit home with the radio towers and radioing in for help, destroying the radio towers. It could lead to better recon potential and giving incentive to players to explore before hitting the main areas. And side missions just shouldn't be a completely kind of wacky story on its own that has nothing to do with the main story. It needs to be more involved with what's going on with the mission at hand. That was a good point. He brought up microtransactions. I disagreed with him here. And this is why. And I was discussing this in my stream. He was talking about maybe rare camo patterns can be microtransactions. And of course, we understand Ubisoft and all these game companies are going to have microtransactions to monetize their game. The only thing I disagree with is what should be microtransactions. I don't think any type of customizable or in-game winnable items should be microtransactions. You should have a lot of your gear should be open at the beginning of the game, and then there are things that you win that you unlock while you're playing the game, just how like most games are. That's cool, but the majority of Ubisoft and Ghost Recon's microtransactions, in my opinion, should take the Fortnite model. No, not battle passes, skins. I look at Ghost Recon Wildlands, and I hated the fact that they had the gambling system. You purchased coins to purchase crates to maybe unlock something. Throw that out the window. Make awesome skins, make these awesome cool items for in-game purchase, microtransactions, and let people purchase them directly. At least for me, Ubisoft would have made a lot more money off of me if I could purchase skins individually. $5 here, $5 there. I've purchased a couple things in Wildlands, and they were all direct. What I was purchasing was what I was getting. One was, I think, the Spetsnaz characters. There were 3 of them for one package for like $10. I bought it because you got 3 cool skins. With all the skins that Wildlands had, if you put all of those up on the store in Breakpoint for $5 each, people would buy them. So, and then of course you can have cool cosmetic items eventually that you keep building after the game comes out that you could put up on the store for ghost coins or whatever, however many ghost coins equals $5, this, that, and the other. But as far as things like camo patterns and things like that, I don't think any camo pattern, this might just be Drewski being like, you know, whatever, I don't care, let it be this, because nobody really wants microtransactions, but we all agree that they're going to be in-game. I'd rather them be skins of in-game characters, things like that, that you would pay for to unlock, to have access to, rather than things that someone might want, like a specific camo pattern that no one should really have to pay for, especially if, leading to the earlier example of what he mentioned and what I agree with, if you're going to have a game that's based on AI not being able to see you with camo patterns, I don't think you could monetize camo patterns in that fashion, unless the camo pattern is just for show, which then kind of negates what we're discussing with everything you have on should matter. If everything you have on should matter in game, then the majority of it should not be purchasable through microtransactions. The majority of it should be in game at the onset. Once you start the game, it should be there. And then there should be items that you unlock, cool items that you can unlock, face masks, certain types of gear, chests, rigs, the way you rig things up. That could be unlockable via in-game winnables or rewards and things like that. And then you have cool skins like all the skins in Wildlands that are available for microtransactions. As far as anything else, I took 40 minutes to discuss his 40-minute video. So you could imagine if I would have taken the time to go through his video to explain everything he just said. But in a in a nutshell, these are the things he discussed, and this is what I agree and I disagree with. I'm gonna do a too long didn't read right here, right at the end. Guys, we could sit here and tell Ubisoft Paris all the things we want in a game, and they'll sit here and they'll ignore it, and they're going to create the game they want. So for me, in my opinion, this is what Ubisoft Paris needs to hear. 1, AI teammates. We would like more if there's a possibility. If not, fine. But AI teammates need to be individually controllable, and they also need to have controls that matter, that are not crazy. No one should be able to press cleared hot and 3 AI teammates run around all on their own everywhere, killing everything. It makes no sense. It's completely not tactical, and it's kind of, it ruins the immersion. Okay? As the player, move to, hold, open fire, hold fire. These things need to work in unison together. Move, hold, open fire, hold fire. They need to work together. I could send one character over here, send one character over there, tell them both to hold, then move down the middle, set up, tell everybody to open fire, and we all sit where we are and open fire. Understand? We all move to a position and are just opening fire. When you tell your teammates to open fire, they don't run around. They stay where they are. Whether you told them to move to or hold, this is what they do. And if you program that, the AI teammates will be 10 times better than what they are right now. Then you can start working on breach, aiming at doors and giving them breach commands, aiming at doors and telling them flashbang breach, aiming at doors telling them frag breach, aiming at a location and telling them stealth to location, and they'll crawl there, aiming at a location and telling them move to open fire, and they'll move to the location and kill anything they see while they continue to move to the location. This is the core of, I feel like, what our squad-based third-person tactical shooter Ghost Recon should be. Right there. They need to work on AI teammates first and foremost. That is the most important thing that will bring this franchise to where it should be. And this is where I disagree with Drewski the most. Everything he discussed was all about co-op, PvE, huge type of sandbox missions. In my opinion, the AI needs to be first and foremost. Then, after teammate AI or with teammate AI, you need to work on enemy AI. Enemy AI needs to flank more. They need to not be behind the truck and run out to try to shoot you. They need to try to suppress from a position and have guys flank. You need to add smoke grenades to the game. The enemies should throw smoke and try to flank you. More flanking mechanics. Get the enemies to flank you. Get the enemies to lay down suppressing fire. These are the types of things people want to see more. Get the enemies to throw more grenades. Get the enemies to throw more flashbangs. Let these things be toggleable as well. Do you want the enemies to throw flashbangs? No. Do you want them to throw grenades? No. Shit, let us toggle it to the point where we can actually use within the UI menu these buttons to say, I just want stupid AI, and that's fine. But at the very least, you need to program these guys to not be so bad and so stupid. They need to understand how one lays down suppressing, the other one flanks around. This one lays down suppressing, this one moves forward. You program that within the enemy AI, you hit a home run. You add teammate AI that we can control to counter those great tactics of enemy AI, you hit a home run. Right off the bat, that's what people want. Teammate AI, enemy AI, mwah, you made a great game. We would overlook all the shitty things that you make, like Ghost Recon Breakpoint with blossoming trees, if we could walk around and have really fun, engaging combat. Okay? Let's see. What else is very, very important for this franchise, besides teammate AI, enemy AI, is the structure of the game you are creating, meaning the types of stories you create. In my opinion, Wildlands was better. A province with intel that opened up missions that led to a main boss. That was way better than what we had in Breakpoint, which was, I start here, I run down here, I get a mission, I run up there, this guy tells me to come down here, that guy says to go. It was the most convoluted type of storytelling I've ever seen, and you need to understand, keeping the player grounded, meaning on the game map, moving through terrain, is how you should design the game. Not the game starts here, you hop in a chopper, you go 10 miles that way to a mission, you fast travel there. You need to have us open the map organically, move around organically, one province at a time. Let things feel like it's hard. Make it feel like it's hard to move 300 meters because we have to go through tough terrain. Something else I feel like Too Long didn't read. You cannot make maps that have the same compounds spread out evenly all over the place. Nowhere in this map are there huge mountains where you have to funnel through with a huge military complex. There's nothing like that in this game. You're lucky if you come upon a tunnel and there's some tunnel areas with wolves. That seems cool. Everything else is a little compound that all feels the same. I just hopped on Watch Dogs, and although that game map might not be as big, it feels good to be in a huge city. And I'm not saying you have to have huge cities in Ghost Recon, but I would have much preferred in some of these provinces you take all these compounds and put them together, and then pin it off in a mountain range. And the only way to get from this area to this area is to go through this complex. Then you realize that it's important to keep the player on the ground, because how easy would it to be just to get in a chopper and fly away? So I don't want to get into any more, because now my video is longer than Drewski's, which is crazy. Now I'm at 45 minutes. But again, too long didn't read. Enemy AI, teammate AI. Fix those things. Nail how you tell your stories. Nail your game maps, man. And that's it. That's it. So anyway, that's my opinion on Operatordrewski's video. It was a great video. Props to him, because he has such a large community. Regardless if I agree or disagree with what he's saying, I think it's great that he's putting his ideas out there. In my opinion, I do disagree with some things. In my opinion, I do agree with some things. But overall, it's great that he's getting it out there, because Ubisoft does need to hear some of this stuff. I just want, for the future, if anybody's seeing this and you do make content, try to focus more on what might be more realistic than completely changing the game. Because no game developer company is going to hear the idea of what you think the game should be and completely rearrange it. They'll hear how you think the mechanics should work and rearrange that. For instance, when we had tiered loot and we said we don't want tiered loot, we want it more realistic, they made the opportunity to turn off tiered loot and pick up enemy weapons like they had in Wildlands. That's something that's reasonable. So we need to get to the point where we're really nailing and hitting home the fact that some of these mechanics don't work. Some of these game design decisions don't work, i.e. walking around and finding loot boxes everywhere. These are the things that need to be tweaked and changed. And hopefully then they could really kind of pinpoint where they have to go with this franchise and with this genre. And hopefully the next Ghost Recon, which I think Drewski said something like a year out or something. I hope we don't see our next Ghost Recon for another 2-3 years at this point. I hope they really work on something. Because if we get a game in 2022, it's probably going to be the same shit. So that is all. I'm signing off. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you saw Drewski's video. Write down below what you agree with him, what you disagree with him. Go to the forums. Actually, fuck it. I'll make this even longer. Let me go to the forums here real quick. Crockford CK. Shout out to Croc. He's always on the forums engaging. He said he says it's not a pipe dream. I still think it is, but it's a good watch either way. It was a good watch, Croc. I agree. Stomp on my balls. He disagreed with Ghost Recon just aping and becoming a half-assed armor. Honestly, I feel where Stomp My Balls is going there. I think it should be its own thing. I also didn't like his idea of focusing mainly on online multiplayer. I completely agree with Stomp My Balls. I think Ghost Recon works best as a single-player experience commanding AI teammates, and I completely agree there. What I discussed here in this video basically nails that idea, is that Ubisoft Paris needs to focus on teammate AI, enemy AI, and I think everything else after that will come together. There are things, gunsmith issues and things like that. Drewski really didn't go into detail with that. He did explain, you know, the gunsmith and breakpoint kind of makes no sense, make it more realistic. But in my opinion, the main things to focus on: teammate AI, enemy AI, and after that, we'll take it from there. 50-minute video. I'm out of here, guys. I'm not even going to go through any more of this. I'll link this forums post down below in the description. I'll have Drewski's video down in the description. You guys watch it. Let me know what you think. Give me your opinions. We'll discuss everything in the comments. Stop by the live stream. We could discuss it in real time if you want. I live stream Monday through Friday. Sometimes I miss here and there, but every day around 2 or 3 o'clock I start my live stream. I'm going through Watch Dogs 2 right now. Stop by. You know, give me your opinion on this video. Give me your opinion on what Drewski said. Give me your opinion on what you think Ghost Recon is, should be, where it should go. We'll take it from there, guys. Everybody, signing off. Love each and every one of you. If you made it through this video, God bless. Like I said, comment down below and we'll get into it. All right, guys, I am out of here. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll probably put this out tomorrow, so enjoy the rest of your day. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Peace.